include preschool special ed kids in MARS.
Yeah.
They don't always include all the kids that are going to that school,
Right.
you know, in the early childhood program, but it's okay to still use those because in the vast majority of cases for priority 1, it's not going to make a difference for the discount level. Where it makes a difference is if a district is doing category 2 and they say, well, yeah, we have 30 kids coming here for the, you know, Jolly Sunshine preschool program, and we've got them enrolled. They don't get necessarily reflected in MARS, so those have to be verified individually.
Okay, so you're talking about the ECFE school readiness type students.
Yeah, exactly. Head Start, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
But you can use but for your purposes, you can certainly use the pre-K counts that are in the state reports.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
For category 1. Yep, you bet. Okay, so other questions on that category 2 budgeting thing? Okay, if you think of one later, please feel free next time I pause. So under category 2, there's a lot of things that are eligible. Access points, wiring, cabling. There's certain types of caching service that are eligible. Firewalls, and I'll speak specifically to firewalls in a minute. Switches, routers, racks, UPS, LAN controllers, and so on. The list is there on the slide. So basically this is designed so that you can ramp up the wireless infrastructure within your buildings to accommodate mobile devices and whatever else is coming in that you're going to need that for. There's also virtualized and managed services that are eligible. So for example, if you're working with a provider who does routing or switching as a cloud service, that all still has to be competitively bid. Everything does, and be the most cost-effective solution. But there are some companies now that are doing some of this type of distribution within the cloud. So, you know, that's just another option for you when you're looking at those services. Third-party managed services. So let's just say you're a very small school district and you want somebody else to you're going to put in the wireless network, but you want somebody else to kind of manage it, to just do the management on it for you and the monitoring and so on. Or you have equipment in there that's you want a third party to manage that, whether it's owned or leased. Those types of things can also be applied for under category 2. So just so that you're aware of some of those other options. Basic maintenance is still, that was under our old priority 2, that continues to be eligible under category 2. So you can enter into arrangements with different providers and get some E-rate support on some of these items. However, just when you go to make your actual claims through E-rate, you are only able to claim, based on your discount level, charges for services that were actually performed. So you have to be careful when you look at some of those service agreements and so forth, because you won't necessarily get your discount straight off of the service agreement. It's going to depend on how much of the service you used. Okay. I'm going to just pause there and just check to see if you have any questions about that category 2 piece. And then I will talk about firewalls in a minute, but then I'm going to talk a little bit about fiber. So any questions that have popped into your head on category 2?
Mary, hi, this is Paula from Clearbrook Dunbick.
Hi, Paula.
Hi. We've been using a managed IT service for 3 years, and they're coming up for contract renewal. And of course, one of the things you look at obviously is cost versus having someone in your building. If I'm understanding it correctly, if we do our application properly, it's possible to get E-rate discounts towards managed services. Can you explain it? We're both very new to E-rate. Can you please explain to me? Obviously, we can't just go with the company that we've had. We have to put out, is it the Form 470 to request bids?
Yes, that's correct. You'll want to file a Form 470 for that service. So the Form 470, you fill it out and you just indicate a description of the service that you're looking for. So you can base that on what you're currently getting from this provider. Do avoid, though, any specific equipment names or anything like that when you're doing a Form 470. So, for example, if they've put in, if they're supporting 3 Cisco 4565 routers or whatever that might be, if you're requesting anything like that, put or equivalent, so it doesn't refer back to a specific model, limit to a specific model and type. That might not matter in the case of what you're looking for here, but I just pointed it out for everybody else. But yes, you'd file that Form 470, and then you would hopefully receive some bids from providers that do this kind of thing. And then you would review those, and you would use some sort of scoring sheet to do that. Remember that with E-rate, you have to weight price the heaviest, but it doesn't have to be your sole decision factor. Okay, so if you have a scoring matrix for your bids and price is worth 30 points, then the other elements on that scoring, so maybe it's proximity to your location, maybe it's years experience, whatever, would all have to be less than 30 points. Okay? So, go ahead.
Is there a minimum number of bids we have to produce in order to be able to be eligible for this? If you only get one bid, is that enough? Do you have to have 3?
Yep. If you get one bid, that's absolutely fine, but you will want to just check that over, make sure it's cost effective for you. And you can then choose that provider, but you're going to want to just write a note to yourself to stick in your E-rate files that says, we only received one bid, it was a cost-effective solution, so we chose that provider. Because obviously if you get one bid and it's crazy, a crazy amount for what they're, you may look at it and go, we might be better off doing this ourselves or whatever. So, but yeah, one bid is perfectly okay. And if you get no bids, you can, by the way, too, once you've filed that 470 and it's posted, you can contact the company that you're working with now and say, we've posted a Form 470, would you please bid on it? So.
Okay. And then is there a minimum number of years the contract has to be?
No. That's entirely up to you. We used to recommend, with most things, you probably don't want to go much longer than 3 years, just because you never know what's going to change with the technology and so forth over, that period of time. But you can do it for as short or as long as you want, basically.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, this is Bill Chambers from Lake of the Woods School District. I have a question about the weighting part of your evaluation for your metrics, and it's kind of an extreme question. If you had your metrics set out, everything was 1 point except for your cost was 2 points, is that still acceptable because it would be double of all the other metrics?
Yeah, as long as it's weighted, their rule says as long as it's weighted as the heaviest in your evaluation, that's what they require.
Okay, and there's no recommended weight then?
No, they don't tell you what that can be. You could have 10 points, 5 points, however you're going to do that.
Okay.
You just want to make sure that put yourself in a picky auditor's shoes, if you will, and just say, okay, if I do 2 points, that is only 1 point. I might want to go with 5 and then 2, 1, 2, whatever it is. So, just so it's significant enough they can see you weighted it. Okay. Anything else? You guys are asking great questions. Thank you. That makes this more interesting for me to do other than just talking. All right. I'll go on to the next item that I have on the list here. And this may or may not impact many of you depending on where things are headed as far as the fiber that's already available to you through Northwest Links contracts with 702 and some of the other things you have going on up there. But there are some new eligibility factors around fiber, and I just want to make sure people are aware of them. Under Category 1, there is now a provision, well, there previously was a provision for construction, but it had a lot of other conditions on it. There is now a provision where you can get E-rate support for special construction or self-construction of dark fiber both within and beyond your property lines. Now, for some, well, the best example I could think of this is a few years ago I was working with a district actually in that area, and they were having a terrible time trying to get a wireless connection to work between their high school and their elementary building because there was just too much interference between. There was a grain elevator and some other stuff going on in town that kept interfering with it. So they made the decision that they had to just put fiber between the two. They felt that was their, they thought that was their best bet, and so they went ahead and did that. Now they could get some E-rate support for something like that. Okay, so there are some provisions for dark fiber, special construction, and self-construction. The modulating electronics that light up the fiber are also eligible. The E-rate will also help with some of the design and engineering, project management, construction, and so forth. Costs on that. They will also allow you, as long as you put it into your Form 470, they will also allow you to pay those construction costs in installments for up to 4 years. So before you used to have to cough it all up in that first year whenever you did it, you now would have 4 years. Now, there's a lot, this gets real complicated real fast, and so I do have some more detail on the SLD training slides. I also have, the FCC has hired a couple consultants to work with them on this and to help school districts who want to get into this. So if this is something you would be seriously considering, get in touch with me and I will get you some additional resources and some people to talk to about it. As you can imagine, a Form 470 is not going to be enough for a fiber construction project. You're going to have to do a full RFP. And there's all kinds of things like environmental studies and things that play into those types of projects. So if that's something you're interested in, I do have more detail on another set of slides from the SLD in there that you can look over. And again, if that's something you want to investigate further, I can put you in touch with some folks with additional resources that can help you. Keep in mind that also that Form 470 is probably going to have to be up. That RFP would probably have to be open for a lot longer than 28 days in order to get it all done. So it's something that if you're looking at it, you're going to want to start it really early after July 1, get going on that kind of a RFP build and bidding process. So I just wanted, though, to make you aware that it is eligible because I know some of you have been in those situations where you've maybe needed fiber connections between buildings and so on. And this would be a way to approach that. So I just wanted you to be aware that that is out there for you. Yes, Peg.
I have two questions. Is that eligibility also out there for libraries?
Yes.
And my second question is, did this start in 2016 or 2015?
It started in 2015, but there were so many And there's some special considerations also for tribal schools. We only have about 3 Bureau of Indian Affairs schools in Minnesota, 3 or 4. So they put a lot more time into that end of it because there's more of those schools in other states. But then as they started to look at this, they decided that this could be kind of hard for a school or a library system to figure out on their own. And so while it was available in 2015, in 2016 they shared a lot more information on it to get the word out.
And so you really had to follow this process in 2015. You couldn't have just done it and then applied.
No,
Okay, thank
No.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And like I said, I have lots more information on this, but because it impacts a fairly small amount of people, if you want more information on it, get in touch with me and I'll point you in the right direction. Okay, just some other odds and ends under Category 1. Data plans are off the table. So if you were doing data plans with cell phones or whatever, those are off the table, except if it's the only way you can bring wireless into a building. There's no other way to install a wireless network in that building. You can use a data plan to bring that in, but otherwise they're off the table. Okay. Firewalls, I wanted to speak to specifically because people have had a lot of questions on this. So firewalls are eligible under Category 1 if they're bundled as part of your internet service from your internet service provider. Okay? So again, eligible as Category 1 if they're coming from your internet service provider. If they're coming from a vendor other than your internet service provider, or they're priced separately by your internet provider, they are considered internal connections, but you could still be eligible for those under Category 2. So firewalls are everywhere. We all use them, so that might be worthwhile taking a look at as well. Just a few other what I call random important things that I'll share. Technology plans are no longer required for E-rate or by the Minnesota Department of Education for Internet Access Equity Aid, Telecommunications Internet Access Equity Aid. Some of you know that as TEA. So schools no longer have to do any technology plans. Peg, I would ask you, I don't know what the Department of Ed has determined for libraries.
No, RLTA hasn't required them for a number of years.
Okay. All right. So you don't have to do technology planning as an exercise for eligibility. Hopefully you're all doing some form of technology planning for your own business operations, but you don't have to turn anything into anybody anymore. E-rate documentation with the changes last year now must be kept for 10 years. So it used to be 5 years. Now you have to keep your documentation for 10 years. You can keep it either electronically or paper or both, depending on your preferences, but you want to hang on to that for 10 years, and that's 10 years after the last payment or activity would have occurred on that particular E-rate application or funding request number. Okay. As I stated earlier, the BEAR forms will now be paid directly from SLD, so I don't know if that's going to improve the turnaround time. Hopefully it will. But again, it depends on how quickly SLD is able to get the payments out to you. But you don't have to wait for the provider to pay them. Start with your Form 470s. You can do those now, even though the window isn't open. Remember, they can be filed. They need to be posted for at least 28 days, but you can do those now. Always remember, you can be audited. You can, I wouldn't say you can and will, because not everybody will be audited, but they do still have a fairly robust auditing process in place. Make sure that your bidding competitions are fair, open, and competitive. And there's lots of other training videos and information on the SLD website now. So if you have something specific you're looking for, that's a really great place to go and look. And they have videos on filing your Form 470 right now that are in the new EPC system that are very comprehensive, very well done. So there's lots of help out there for you to figure that out. And that's my highlights for you today, but I would love to just see if you have any questions. I'd be happy to take any questions, or if there's something you were wondering about that I didn't cover, say the word.
I got a quick question. We use a SEPA filter appliance for filtering, and it's been brought to my attention that it may not be covered under E-rate?
Correct.
That is correct, okay.
That is correct. Yep, the firewall is, but the filtering isn't, unless it's so embedded and bundled within the firewall piece that it's impossible to split it out. I can't hear you. You muted
Well, you
yourself
can't
again.
run the firewall without the subscription of the software.
Yeah.
Just.
I just
Mary,
caught the
would you-
tail end of that.
Sorry, Mary, would you repeat your answer to?
Yeah, typically the filtering piece has not been eligible unless it is, now that the technology has changed to a certain extent and now the firewall is covering more things. If it's embedded as part of the firewall piece, that's part of that software, then you're likely going to get the funding, get some support for the firewall, or they may come back to you and say, well, we'll give you this percentage of it for the firewall because the internet filtering would be this much. They might ask you about that or cost allocated out. But definitely the sections of the firewall are eligible. And like I said, if the filter's really bundled with or embedded with the firewall, you're likely going to be fine there. What the gentleman was asking before was he has a special appliance, a physical appliance that's a content filter, and that would not be eligible.
You need to go.
Does that make sense?
Some will be eligible, right?
Right.
You can ask your question about it, thanks, or not?
Oh, no, because it's 7, or it's my, whatchamacallit.
Apparently they're talking about something they don't want me to hear. Okay.
Huge.
We're confused because would the firewall have to be a part, would we have to get it from 702?
No. The only difference there is if your firewall comes from 702 and it's bundled with with your internet service, then you can claim it under Category 1. If you're getting it from somebody else or 702 prices it separately, then it comes under Category 2. So it's just the difference of which category it comes under. It's still eligible, it's just which category is it.
Or if we have a sonic wall in-house, that would be category 2.
Yes. Now, if you bought that and you own it already, there isn't anything you can do until you replace it. So,
But if it is time to replace it,
then you could do the Form 470 and bid that out, and that would be a Category 2.
Okay. But not the content filter part of it, just the device itself, correct?
They typically try to make you split out the content filter if they see that that's in there.
Okay.
Anything else?
Okay. Hi, Mary, Jim Getter from the Northwest. Question, do you know if 702 provides a firewall service? And if not, seems like that'd be the way to go.
That'd be a question to ask 702 themselves. I don't know. I'm assuming that Northwest Links is probably not providing that as part of your internet access at this point in time. But if it's something that 702 could roll out regionally and you could get pricing on it, you certainly could do it that way. It just is really up to them as to whether they want to provide that service or not.
Could our local telephone company provide it?
Sometimes they do. Yep, it just depends on the depends on the company, Jim.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. But you could, for example, you could do a 470 saying you're looking for that firewall service and let 702 and let Paul Bunyan or whoever you've got for your local stuff know that that 470 is out there and see what they come up with. What else?
Hey, Mary, this is Bob from LPA. Quick question. For Category 2, is there a fixed pool of money that are available? So say you don't take advantage this year or next, is it going to dry up and you're sort of going to be out of luck?
No, that's a good question, Bob. What they've said is they've said that they're going to study it after 2 years. So at the end of funding year 2016, they're going to study what they've done with allocating the funding specifically to Category 2, how that's worked out, whether they have enough money in there, whether they need more money, whether it was efficient to do it that way. But they have said that funding is supposed to be available to you for 5 years after you first tap it. So I don't have any reason to believe that it will dry up if you don't use it right away. But it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to kind of get on top of it and plan for what you might want to do. So at least you have a plan so when you're ready, you'll be able to go through and get what you need.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I don't have any reason to feel it will dry up. They very specifically pulled some funding. That's part of the reason they eliminated the voice services and some other things to start putting money into that category. So I don't have any reason at this point to think it would dry up or go away.
Hi, Mary, Tim again.
Hi.
If we qualify for, let's say, 300,000 over 3 years, pre-discount.
Yep.
Are we eligible to use up to that 300,000 for the 5 years, or just how much we qualify for?
Remember, that's the pre-discount amount. So if you have, and that's based on your $150 per student. So if you have projects that at your discount level come up to that amount, then conceivably you could use it all. But in most cases, people will be using just their discount percentage of that amount.
So in year one, if I use my 110,000 that I qualify for free, year two, do I use 110 again?
No, it's set aside for you over the 5 years, but what they will, but it goes down, as you use it, it's going to go down. But they will make adjustments, like if you get more kids, in your district, you would get additional funding for those extra kids and so on. But it's a 5-year plan, so that's your cap over 5 years.
Okay.
Hey, Mary, on this fiber,
Yep.
I'm surprised that was considered Category 1. I want to connect an outbuilding with fiber and switches to go with. Is that always considered Category 1?
No, this is new. It used to be, it was always considered category 1, but they had a lot of, they had so many more conditions on it and conditions for how you could, and districts had to pay everything up front, whereas now you can amortize it out over a few years. So it's loosened up a little bit. It also used to have to be, the fiber had to be lit, lit when it went in. Now it can be dark for a certain amount of time as long as you are lighting it up during the program year. So there's a lot of specifics. But yeah, that was always under category 1, but because there were so many conditions on it, it very rarely fit very well with any particular, with most situations. Now they're kind of putting it out because they realize there's a crisis with some communities trying to get fiber out to schools. In the FCC's definition, fiber is the best way to provide broadband. So that's why they put that emphasis on it.
So even though this is strictly in district, it's still considered, I would think that it would be internal connection, but it's still considered.
Yeah. The construction now is considered category 1. Yep. And if you want more info on that, let me know, and I will get you some more details on that. Anything else?
Hi, Mary. It's Dana Woods.
Hi, Dana.
You know when the 471 deadline is off the top of your head?
No, because they haven't opened the window yet. But when they open the window, they'll set it a certain number of weeks after the window opens. It's usually about 6 to 8 weeks. My best guess at this point would be we'll see it open any day now, and it's likely to be open until the end of March. But the more they put off the opening of the window, the later it will be open. So it's not like they'll decide to open it February 1st and have it be March 1st or anything like that. Well, you have been a marvelous audience, as always. If there's any other questions you have, I'll hang on. Otherwise, I talked to you for a good hour or so hopefully you've got what you need to go ahead and move forward. If any of you are more beginners and need a little extra help kind of just navigating as you go through it the first time, please don't hesitate to call me. No question is ever considered dumb because this process generates a lot of questions. You have my contact information. Stay warm.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And hopefully I'll see some of you up in Thief River Falls next week.
You'll see me, Mary.
Thank you. All right, great. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
Bye. You bet. Bye-bye.